So we are with Professor Queloz today, an Nobel Prize winner in 2019, astrophysics. Thank you so much for being with us today. Appreciate your time. And you know what? So that you can just bring towards us not astrophysics. What is an exoplanet? In just common terms, please don't get too technical. And how relevant do you think it is today in our Earth life?
Okay, so a lot of questions at the same time, but let's go by order. Well, first, an exoplanet is a planet orbiting a star, but it's not the sun, it's another star. So you know that all the stars we see at night, they're like our own sun. Mm-hmm. So it took a long time to find out that an evidence that there were also planet orbiting other stars. So it was an idea very old, but it was kind of challenging because the planet is very tiny, and we had to rely on it's called an indirect trick to detect this planet by looking in a tiny change of speed into the star. So when there is a planet orbiting a star, the star is moving a little bit, and you use that to find out the planet. So this is what we did 25 years ago. That was the first time ever it was done. And the planet that we found was really awkward. It was a planet like our own giant planet Jupiter, but it was extremely close to the stars. So the planet took only 4 days to orbit entirely the star, and it means the distance between the star and the planet is 20 times closer than the distance between the Earth and the sun. It means the planet is roasted, it's very hot. That's why we call that kind of planet hot Jupiter. So this is what we did 25 years ago, and that opened the Pandora box, because the fact we found one, it means there were more than one. And then a whole new generations of astrophysicists decided to start working on that topic. And right now we had satellite, plenty of telescope surveys. I didn't check the number today of the number of known identified planet orbiting other stars, exoplanet, but we're more than 4,000 stars that have a planet. And we know that essentially all the stars have a planet of some kind.
Wow, that's amazing.
So that's what we did. Now, the impact, well, I think we continue a work that was started almost 400 years ago when we put the Earth at the right locations, which said orbiting the sun. It's called the Copernican revolutions. So we just continue these revolutions by saying it's not only we are a planet orbiting a sun-like stars, but we are one planet amongst zillions of other planets orbiting zillions of other stars. So in a way, we kind of very common. Still, a lot of planets we have found are different from the planet of the solar system, but we may come back on that. And then the impact on that, it's like knowledge-based science. It's difficult to gauge the exact impact of a discovery which is curiosity-driven. Thinking about Einstein, the day when he decided to come up with these equations of the relativity, he was pushed only by aesthetic. It was the aesthetic of having the time and the distance together that pushed Einstein to develop a new theory. Well, the theory that was just built for the pure sake of knowledge, of the beauty of the knowledge, now is quite useful because your GPS system is working on these equations. So you would not even have a GPS without Einstein equations. So who knows what is the impact of fundamental discovery? Who knows on the society what this will be used later on, or the impact on the society? But we'll see. Anyway, we now have demonstrated we are one planet amongst many, and we should maybe pay more attention to our own planet, but that's another
story. Well, I want to bring you from the sky back to Earth, into our contingency right now. Today, the whole world is united under the umbrella of science, though society is very polarized too. We're living through difficult times in the current pandemic, and many people just look up the sky looking for answers. When you look up, what do you find?
Well, there's different way of looking at. The science is looking about facts and element to better understand where we are, how this is working, why do we have this. This is a kind of curiosity driven, and it's essentially the purpose of the science. We're trying to understand the universe, we're trying to understand the history of the universe, we're trying to understand the origin of life on this planet, trying to find out whether there may be different kind of form of life, whether there's life on Mars. It's all these kind of questions, and I can come up with a long list of questions, which are essentially very deep-rooted questions. When you talk about the origin of the universe, well, you go back in the past, and that's the origin of the inspirations for artists. That's essential. The cosmogony is an essential piece of the build-up of a belief into a God to establish an understanding of where we're living. So this is what we're doing as a scientist, but being a scientist doesn't prevent us to be very human. And as a human, we have a lot of emotions, we have a lot of sensations. And personally, I love watching the sky with the best instrument that I receive with my birth, which are my eyes, because I think you can really feel this kind of immense perceptions, especially when you are in beautiful sight like the Chilean desert, when you really see how bright is the sky, how bright are the stars, because it tells you that we are part of the same universe, and we are a product of this universe. And I think this is a fascinating question to develop in terms of our own mean and what is the rationale behind this. I don't claim I have any answer to that, but I think this is a good sensation to have.
Especially these days. And Professor, when you talk about 55 Cangrey E, do you think that would be an alternative to our today's reality here on Earth?
Well, I don't think science is a substitute to own reality. I think we better face the reality of of what we're living on, and we have certainly the pandemic is let's call it an interesting experience. I think it's a very sad experience because all the impact of the pandemic was anticipated and fully predicted years ago, has a clear possibility, and we should be way more careful about the way a virus could spread on the global scale with the so quick way right now we have to travel. I think the science had predicted exactly all what's going on, and the scientists keep driving the recommendation, which sometimes has been difficult to implement. In some country, these recommendations are just impossible to implement, like in US right now. So I think this is an interesting experience about how damaging can lead the denying the reality of the facts. And we are living a kind of let's say, fascinating situation here, which is kind of almost a nightmare at the same time. Our society is entirely built upon the science. Everything we do is a result of a scientific result. The day you take your car, the way you communicate, the food you get, all this is a result of a long, careful process of studying the nature, understanding the law of the nature, and trying to replicate and use them for our own interest. Well, our society is entirely built on that. But at the same time, we deny the knowledge that we have built up to help us, because it has consequences that we're not happy to bear, because we are failing at believing really what it means knowledge based. We have lost contact in some way with the fact that the society is knowledge based. So I think the COVID is on a very small scale and a short scale, the problem of the global warming and the impact of the human on the atmosphere that we know. It's exactly on the COVID element, which is way more dramatic, that will touch billions of people, and the people dying will not be the number we have right now, but can certainly multiply by many fold because of the impact of global warming on a long time. scale. So I think we have to reconnect. As a scientist, I feel we have to reconnect with this dialogue. What means a knowledge-based society? Why are we so disconnected with the reality when we come up to get policy and governmental driving some decision here? And hopefully we should maybe engage maybe more frequent way with you, the media. The media has a very important role to play by first connecting the scientific knowledge in the general sense. It can be psychology, sociology, with the public, and having the public having a chance to understand much better what we understand and what we can learn from this understanding, and that there are some part we don't understand, and we have to accept this as well as a limit of what we can do.
Wow, that was such an interesting point of view. Professor, when you talked about the 4,000 stars that most likely all of them have their own system, and that most likely every star has their own system, we're talking here about 4,000 planets then, or exoplanets. I understand one of them in particular moved so fast that it was actually flattening.
Yes.
Is that destined to destruction then? It's going to be so narrow that finally it's going to disappear?
Well, it would if it would be too quick. But okay, in that case, you cannot change so easily that kind of mechanism, because there are what's called conservation law in physics, and changing parameters like an orbit is extremely difficult. You can do that very slowly, but not very quick. No, the Earth is not a perfect sphere. There is a small flattening on the Earth as well, which is due to the fact the Earth is rotating. So the fact that when you have a body, which is essentially made of liquid, Earth it looks very solid, but we're only sitting on a few kilometers of crust. If you dig deeper, well, you meet the lava that well in Chile with the volcano, and they have a lot of lava very deep down until you reach the core, which is again a solid part again. So essentially, we are on a liquid planet. When you have a liquid object, it's like on a balloon. You feel a balloon when you're kids. Maybe you play that. You put water in the balloon and you
throw it.
On
Absolutely.
Friends,
we all did, right?
We all did it. So if you take the balloon and you rotate very quick, you see it flatten out as well. So this is a consequence. So any sphere that we start to rotate, even a little bit, will be flattened out. If you do that very extremely, you flatten out such that it becomes almost like a disk. And if you do that very, very quick, the outskirt would just disintegrate. But we're not reaching that level of speed in that case in the planet. But yes, it happens, and it's quite fun for an astrophysicist to find some extreme object.
I can imagine. And actually, I was asking too, because I wanted to take you to self-destruction. In your public references about civilization disappearance, you also related to nuclear weapons. And related to what we're living right now, what we're going through, the pandemic, the lack of respect sometimes towards sanity protocols or the norms, or the discredit from some groups about the emergency. Do you consider that also a self-destruction? You talked a little bit about the pandemic and the world, environmental. But do you think it's about the civilization too?
I think we build with this kind of dual capability in a way. We have all the tools, all the mechanism to be nice with people, to assemble, to be friendly, to have social interactions. We are built up with all the tools, all the mechanisms to do that, because it's an essential part of the survival of our species to be able to be not isolated, but to be in groups and operate in groups, and to be living in group and sharing things in group. So we have this capability. Essentially, to be in groups, you have to be nice and you have to share and to collaborate. But at the same time, we also have a high capability of high aggressiveness. We are extremely, it maybe comes as a surprise, that comes with the curiosity that we really want to always get more. And it can come with a lot of other side effects, like the greed, and you want to assemble, and then you want to beat, and you want to conquest. So we have this dual capability as a species, and some people are more one side than the other. And it's always a kind of a balancing act between the two. Now, what is worry for me right now is this curiosity-driven attitudes has led to fantastic results. You have no people in most of the country access to medicines that can safely assume they will live to 60, 70 years old without any doubt because of the progress in the medicine. This is a very new concept because 200 years ago, it was not the case at all. So you really see the benefit for humankind to have access to this better food. We're not worried anymore about lacking food. I mean, the fact we're lacking food, almost, there's still some area sometime because of war had happened. But essentially, this is gone. And now we have solved this problem, having to feed the whole population. So this is all the good stuff that we are making. Well, at the same time, we have created thermonuclear weapon, and the fact we have an arsenal of thermonuclear weaponry is extremely scary. We have the God privilege to kill everybody, everyone, and we have this risk right now. So we have always this ambiguity in terms of species, and I really, in a way, hope that at one point we will understand that it is much more benefit to play this community aspect, goodwill aspect, that trying to playing this conquest aspect. It's always been debated, what is the best? There is even discussion right now, what is the best for business? To be more aggressive or trying to be more comprehensive and nice with the people? You see that this debate in the society quite often. It's quite fascinating in terms of psychology, also social psychology. So I think this is a challenge that we have in terms of species. And at the same time, we still have kind of a mindset which is the same at the time we were almost trying to hunt for animals for survival. So there's always this complexity of our brain that is balancing between all of that. So I think this is a serious challenge, and the fact we have the COVID is a fascinating experience because it's a real-time experience when we try to see, we really see the reactions. We see how people are denying some fact. It's in a way that it seems so awkward and doesn't make any sense. So we have to live with that, and in a way, it tells us that in terms of brain development, in terms of capability to think the knowledge, we still have a lot of progress to do. And ideally, I'm still idealistic. I hope that sooner or later we will have understood that we have nothing to gain about this capability to self-destroy. But maybe that's the price to pay, having such a high development of science. At the same time, you increase your capability to kill yourself. And you may be reaching a tipping point where that will doom us. And I think the challenge we have for the future due to the global warming is interesting because it's a very slow process, and it's a COVID effect, but spread over maybe 50, 100 years with way more dramatic consequences on the way the society operate than just a couple of lockdown here or there for a couple of months. So I think we're living a challenging time, and in a way I feel a little bit guilty that my generations, we failed on some of this aspect to understand what was going on. So the new generation seems to be a bit more aware and trying to reconsider some of the choice we had, and is trying maybe to make a little bit of progress in this direction. Hopefully, I hope they will keep on the same line and will not be digested by the society later on.
Oh, Professor Queloz, it's just such an interesting conversation, and we can go on forever. I mean, for a whole afternoon at least. We don't have much more time, but I know you're idealistic, you said, and in other interviews I've heard optimistic too. So if you could just give, especially because in this edition of Congreso Futuro, mainly we're worried about the uncertainties that we're living in the nearby future. If you can just give us a message, the one that you're living by maybe, or the one that you're giving your family or your friends in order to keep on and keep on having belief or strength in order to go on.
Yeah, I think the strength is the resilience. We are extremely resilient. We're very strong. And there is always the hope that the next generation will do better than the current generation. So I think we all have a responsibility to listen carefully to this new generation. I think they're sending us a very interesting messages, especially we can take the global warming, but that's not the only messages. Mm-hmm. And if you do have kids, I think we should really seriously listen to them and trying to ask yourself, or maybe we can help them to establish a society that in a way, will not be solved everything. I don't believe to the magic mushrooms and the magic wand and something that will solve everything. But at least we have this kind of attitudes of goodwill, and there is so much to gain here by trying to promote this idea. So my task right now is trying to help as much as I can the young generations to establish the dream they have. And my first message, and the way message I always have sent to them, is I know you have dream. I know that you would like to do something. I can tell you that you will be able to make it if you keep pushing for it. And there is something you should never do, is listening to an old guys like me.
So just perseverance then, and follow your dreams then.
Follow your dreams.
Professor Didier Queloz, thank you so very much for your time, and all the best for this coming weeks, okay? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.